What's up guys, Rogue9 here, and in today's video I want to shine a bit of a spotlight onto the issue of peeker's advantage, ping abuse, and how latency in general will affect your experience when you're playing a first-person shooter that uses server-side hit validation. Dying to a high-ping opponent who manages to kill you before even popping up on your screen is super frustrating, and as we all know, the higher the enemy's ping, the more time they have to shoot you after coming around a corner, right? Except wrong. This is one of the most common misconceptions when it comes to peeker's advantage, and in fact, one that I myself used to believe in for a long time. I will be explaining the various issues in this video using Rainbow Six Siege as a basis, but these concepts will apply to all games that use server-side hit validation, so the findings will apply to pretty much all modern online first-person shooter games out there. And with that, let's finally get to it. Before I launch into an explanation of how and why your opponent's ping does not matter at all when it comes to peeker's advantage, let me first very briefly go over some of the basics to make sure we're all on the same page. Ping, that number we see shown to us in online games. That's the time it takes for a message from your PC or console to travel to the server and back. Latency is the time it takes for a message to travel on one leg of that journey, so from your device to the server or from the server to you. So latency is basically half the ping, and times are usually shown in milliseconds. Now, how does this affect gameplay? Well, when you provide any input to the game on your device, for instance, moving your character, using your weapon, or a gadget, or anything else really, that input is registered on the local game client on your machine and your character performs the required action. At the same time, a message is sent to the server informing it of what you've chosen to do in your game, and it will take half the time of your ping plus the processing time of up to 1 tick for the server to receive and understand that message. I'm going to keep things simple in the examples going forward and leave out the processing time on the server and client, and we will simply assume that they are equal for all players, although of course a player running the game at a very low frame rate will have a disadvantage compared to others, but that's a whole other topic. So the message has now reached the server, is processed, and then of course it needs to get sent out to all of the other players, and the time it takes for the message of your original action to reach the other players is dependent on their individual latencies. What all of this will cause is what we can think of as a ghosting effect. When you move on your device, your character as represented on the server will lag behind by half of your ping, and then you will need to add half of the other players' pings on top of that to get the time lag when compared to what they see on their PCs or consoles. Make sense so far? Good. I tested this in-game, but before I show you that, here's a quick word from today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Drop, the company formerly known as Massdrop, and their product, the Sennheiser PC37X. I've owned this headset now for quite a while, several months in fact, and I'm still more than happy to recommend it. Sennheiser is of course known as a company that makes great quality speakers, and great quality speakers translate into great quality audio. Very light and comfortable to wear even over longer time, I think this headset is a great solution for anyone looking for a headphone and mic combo, but don't just take my word for it. The item currently has a great customer rating of over 4.5 out of 5 stars. So if you're in the market for a new headset, I can definitely recommend the PC37X, and if you use the link in the description below, a $30 discount will automatically be applied during your checkout. Many thanks to Drop for supporting the channel. Let's face it, playing with high ping is never a great experience. For one, silly things like this can happen. As you can see in this clip where both players have high ping, I landed a total of 5 headshots on Rook here before losing the gunfight. 100% ridiculous, and what's even worse is that in the deathcam replay you can still see me supposedly shooting 5 bullets before Rook reacts. What really happened in this clip is that Rook actually fired a split second before me, and since his shots were registered on the server first, all of my follow-up hits were rejected and I lost the fight. It looks really sketchy both in the live play and the replay, but actually it worked perfectly as intended. The player that shot first, where both players have pretty bad ping, won the fight. But how does high ping affect peaking? Here's what it looks like to get peaked on a server where both players have a pretty high ping. I think it's fair to say that that was pretty much an instant death. I really didn't have any chance to react. Now let's look at that situation in a local match where the ping of both players is 1 millisecond. Okay, that was also pretty much instant. In fact, if we put the two clips side by side, you can see that they are virtually identical, and any variance is most likely due to the human factor of me not replicating the peak perfectly across both tests. But isn't high ping supposed to cause a major difference in the victim's experience due to the peaker's advantage? Well, here is where the most common misconception of peaker's advantage comes in. The higher the ping of the peaking player, the more profound the ghosting effect on the server will be, but this will not provide them with any advantage at all. Because we have server-side hit validation, it will take just as long for the player's shots to be registered on the server, and this basically cancels out any advantage that would have come from the higher ping of the peaker. Let that sink in for a second. The ping of the peaker doesn't matter, because any advantage in terms of the time they get to see the opponent before the server registers the peak is eaten up by the time it takes for the shots to also register. Peaker's advantage is still a real thing, but it is in fact the ping of the victim that is important here. Many seasons ago, the Rainbow Six dev team shared a visual example in a blog post, and why don't I walk you through this step by step to explain what I mean. In this example, we have player 1 with a ping of 200 milliseconds, peaking player 2 who has a lower ping of 100 milliseconds. Player 1 peaks, and it takes 100 milliseconds, half the ping, for the peak to be registered on the server. Then it takes 50 milliseconds, half of player 2's ping, for the info of that movement to be sent to player 2's PC or console. So at the time that player 2 gets to see the peak, player 1 has already been fully exposed for a full 150 milliseconds. 150 milliseconds after this, player 1 fires. We are assuming a 300 millisecond reaction time, and it then takes 100 milliseconds for that info to reach the server. As long as player 2 manages to shoot early enough for their shots to register on the server first, they will still win the gunfight, and their own latency of 50 milliseconds again plays a role here. What this results in is a window of opportunity during which player 2 can win the gunfight, and that is player 1's reaction time minus player 2's ping. In a perfect world, we would not have any delay at all, and it would just be a case of whoever shoots first wins. So as long as you can aim and shoot quicker than your opponent, you've got this. But since it's all about whose shots register on the server first, the disadvantage for player 2 comes from the 50 milliseconds it takes to see the opponent after the server's already registered the peak, and then the additional 50 milliseconds it takes for player 2's shots to register on the server. Player 2 is disadvantaged twice by their latency, which adds up to their ping and therefore explains the peaker's advantage window of opportunity formula I mentioned earlier. Player 2 must react faster than player 1's reaction time minus player 2's ping. I hope this little example helped clarify what I'm trying to get at, because it was a complete revelation to me when I found out that it's my own ping providing the opponent's peaker's advantage, not theirs, and consequently, there is actually no such thing as ping abuse. If an opponent has a very high ping, they get no advantage when peaking you, but they do get a serious disadvantage when you peak them. Any kind of peaker's advantage you perceive against yourself is down to your ping and the processing time on the server or your machine. No more and no less. And beyond that, the disadvantage of a high ping goes even further, because if you're ever in a gunfight situation where both players fire at each other at the same time on their clients, the player with the higher ping will lose because their shots will reach the server later, and if they're already marked as dead on the server, their hits will be rejected, resulting in an all-out win for the low ping player. But why is it then that we have these experiences all the time where we die without the opponent ever appearing on our screens? And why is it almost always against players who have a bad ping? Maybe the answer is that those deaths are more down to perspective than lag. Maybe we notice suspicious deaths more when the opponent has a high ping, because that fits in more with the usual understanding of peaker's advantage. I'm just guessing here, of course, but in games with server-side hit validation, there is no plausible reason why the peaker's ping should provide them with any kind of benefit. And that's it. I do hope that my little excursion into this frustrating topic has provided a little more clarity on the issue. If you learned something today and enjoyed the video, do leave it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, that's what the thumbs down is there for. Do leave any comments you have below, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next episode.